went professional. Okay. I went professional around 2007 when I was in graduate school. And and when back then I just would bring my cards with me everywhere. I got invited to a lot of parties and a lot of events where even my professors would bring me into other classes that I wasn't taking and ask me to read for their students
Nice.
sometimes.
Wow.
And eventually it just got to the point that I had to start charging for it. And that was how I became professional. I did not ever plan to be a professional tarot card reader. It was always just this thing I did, my hobby more than anything else,
Yeah.
which I think is a really good way to start. I'm a little leery of people who buy a book and want to hang up a shingle right away and and say
Right.
they're pro. Um,
Yeah.
but the book, Tarot Life Lessons, this came out of my journals because for years I had been, sometimes I would put it on my blog, sometimes I would put it, just in my private diaries, but I would have these readings occasionally that shook me to my core, whether it was upsetting or exciting or thrilling, in a happy way. I've always said that I am equally moved with my clients many, many times. And it's a situation where I'm growing with them. I
That's
don't
awesome.
think, yeah, I think tarot is like that. I mean, it's about connection, right? And so I am, when I tell my clients, when I read your cards, I'm connecting with you and I'm showing you what you already know from a higher subconscious level and bringing it down into the consciousness. And
Mm.
so when I am experiencing a reading with someone, which is really what it is for me, it can be personally transformational. So that was what started me on writing all of this. Plus, I'm a creative writer and a poet. I went to, as I said, I went to graduate school. I got my MFA in creative writing, so I'm very much a writer. And so these stories, I hadn't planned to do anything with them. And my husband kept saying, I've been an author. I've got 3 books on the mysticism of the poet and writer Sylvia Plath, and I'm a Plath scholar. My husband kept saying, you need a fun book. You need to write about what you do. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't know, and I always said there's a million tarot books out there. There's a million how-tos. I didn't want to
Mhm.
write another one of those.
Yeah.
But then during COVID, when we were all in quarantine, I thought, maybe I'll look at these and put this all together. And interestingly, my Plath work, Sylvia Plath, structured her famous book Ariel, her poems on the tarot, on the major and minor arcanas. And that's not a something that most people know, and that's kind of what my work is about, is getting that
Mhm.
out. But I wanted to, I emulated her in that system. So it's the tarot, the major arcana, is the journey of life, what Joseph Campbell called the hero's journey. It
Mhm.
is kind of all of the stages and all of the events that we all go through, no matter your culture, no matter your sex, no matter your orientation. And
Right.
we all have a mother, we all have a father, we all have usually the lover's experience, the work experience,
Mhm.
money, success, these regular things. And there's a card for every one of those in the major arcana.
Hmm.
So I took a cue off of Sylvia Plath, whose birthday is today on this day that we are
Oh,
recording,
interesting.
October 27th.
No,
And
we did that on purpose. We did that on purpose. I just want everybody to know we did that on purpose. Yeah, yeah, right.
and I structured my stories. I matched them to each of these cards, so it tells a bigger story in just reading through the book.
Cool.
But but each
Wow.
story
Thank
kind of
you.
highlights one of those cards. and I had a lot of fun with it. I think it's the kind of book that you don't have to have any interest in tarot really to enjoy just the good story of, oh my gosh, this happened. These are
Cool.
universal human stories. But if you like tarot, if you're interested in learning, you'll see how I do it. And because I explain my thought process, you'll see the things that I struggle with just as a person. I think a lot of people think that a tarot card reader is some kind of guru, that I am all knowing, that I am perfect, and you're going to see me really wrestle with boundaries. You're going to see me wrestle with my own insecurities.
You're being gloriously infallible, right?
Yeah, I got very vulnerable in it because it came from my journals. And I did have times that I thought, do I want to say that? Do I really want to share this meditation I had that's so revealing to me, and that everyone's going to read it and half the people are going to be like, she's cuckoo, And I thought, yeah, I'm just going to put it all out there, and the people who get it will get it. And I've been called names before, and I'll survive it.
Well, we've been called cuckoo a few times too. So,
so I want to roll back a bit. I want to roll back the time a little bit. So, because I like the story aspect of what you did in that book, and I know for me, I have my story of what led me on the path to what I do and what I've done over the years. At 16, what made you think tarot? Like what was that?
Yeah.
Like what was the trigger? What was the catalyst that put you on that path?
So my story is the first story in this book, and it aligns with the Fool card. And the Fool is number 0. So this is technically chapter 0. Okay. And the Fool card, I know.
We laugh.
I'm laughing because we're in the process of writing a book, and our first chapter is chapter 0.
Oh, wonderful. So so you get it.
So great.
The Fool card, it's not really truly considered the major arcana or the minor arcana. It's considered the bridge between the two. And being number 0, it's a card of children. It's a card of being naive, ignorant, open. You see that Fool on the tarot card, and he's looking at the sky kind of just happily. In some drawings, he's following a butterfly, and he's about to step off a cliff. And we don't know if he's going to fall into an abyss or if he's just going to step down gently to a step we don't see, Nice. And he's got this playful dog. And the idea is it's all just fun, and there's no safety net. And it's just exploring. He's very much a traveler. He's got his traveler satchel, and so that's me as a 16-year-old wandering into a magic shop. And the way I describe it, today we can find all of these kind of new age shops with crystals and tarot cards and all those books. They didn't exist in the 1970s when I was 16. And so my magic shop was magic tricks, rabbits out of hats and foam balls and gag gifts and right in the midst of all of that was this deck of tarot cards in a glass case. And I talk about this young woman behind the counter who to me seemed to possess all the wisdom of the ages, but in reality she was probably about 20. And she said to me, do you want to see some real magic? And she opened up the case and she showed me these cards, and that was it. And I plunked down my babysitting money, and they were a part of my life from then on. And, I talk about, I'm self-taught. People ask me sometimes, did you go to a tarot school? And for many, many years, even for decades, I used only what they call the LWBs, the little white booklets that come in the box of tarot cards.
Mhm.
And it has just the most minimal information about the cards. And I believe, and I tell people that I think that's an excellent way to learn, because it forces you to trust in your intuition and the inner stuff. You're not getting too full of other people's ideas. You know,
Exactly.
as
It allows space for your own self to come
yeah,
through it. Yeah.
yeah. And as I got older, you know, I've read all the books by Mary Greer and Rachel Pollack and, you know, some of the big tarot authors. And I think
Mhm.
they have a lot of valuable stuff to contribute, but I don't think you have to know, you know, these hard, fixed kind of meanings for each card. And some of the best readers that I've watched read and talked to very much take cues just from the pictures, just from feelings, just from a particular question that's asked, and maybe how this card has fallen, you know, next to this card, and in a way that, you know, just unexpected new ways. I don't think we have to have these rules.
Mhm.
I think rules are really against intuition in so many ways.
Yeah, they box you in. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. That's fascinating. So then this book is actually coming out November 7th. Is that correct?
November 7th is the release date. I have an
Awesome.
audiobook coming soon after.
Sweet.
Oh,
And
we're
and that
we're a big fan of
that was
audiobooks.
yeah. Oh, well, everybody is, because it's extra time, you know, you can just listen in the
Mhm.
car or whatever.
Yeah.
It was a real fun challenge for me to do the audiobook, because when I said I wanted to do it, I hadn't quite thought it through. You know, initially they had found an author or a reader for me.
Yeah, I did, yeah. Mhm.
And I was like, no, these are my words. You know, these are my story. This
Exactly.
has to be me, right?
Great.
Mhm.
And I do have radio experience, and so I thought easy peasy. But then once I was in it, it's so hard. I
Yeah.
mean, first of all, the slightest noise, like my stomach rumbles, you know, and that would come up, and I would need a retake, or you know, you get a little pop sometimes, you know, when you're
Mhm.
talking, or it's you can't just read this. This isn't just reading, this is acting.
Yeah,
And
yeah, you have to bring it to life, right?
Are you
yeah,
doing this in the studio or are you doing it at home?
well, I have sort of a combination. We have a home studio because my husband is a musician, and
Oh,
it's
there you go.
and it's maybe not the best studio. So we
Mhm.
did require some retakes, but it was good enough. And thank
That's
goodness for that, because that's another thing, to have to book time and travel and get it
right.
all, you know. This was something that if I felt like after breakfast I wanted to go down to his office and record for a
Mhm.
couple of hours, you know, I could do that in my
Yeah.
pajamas, you know,
Yeah,
no
yeah,
one
yeah.
has to see me.
You know, I was listening to an interview just a couple days ago. Somebody who has a book that's coming out, I think in December, and he said he spent 100 hours in a recording studio to do this
Yeah.
book. And I was just flabbergasted. I'm like 100 hours,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you know,
Well,
he was obviously he wanted to be top notch. He wanted, as you wanted to do it himself. He goes, people know my voice. I want these are my words, and
your voice changes. You know,
Mhm.
if I'm reading and
Yeah.
I say the Infinite Wisdom interview series, you know, so I
Mhm.
say that once, but maybe another time I might be like the Infinite Wisdom interview series. And that is different from how I said it the
Yeah.
first time, right? And so if
Mhm.
there was a little pop or something, and it's half one way and half the other, it's going to sound weird. It's
Exactly.
and it's just crazy making. And how do you do it? I don't know. Like, you know, they're masters over at Inner Traditions, where they're cobbling it all together. And I did do a few different takes, and so I might say the Infinite Wisdom interview series, the Infinite Wisdom interview series, you know. And they'll pick which ones they like,
Now,
and
if you could just add the Infinite Wisdom interview series is the best interview I've ever done. Why don't we try that? Let's just
Well, it
try
might
that.
be.
Let's run
We
that
might,
one through.
we
And then
might be getting
we'll
there.
get a lot more play, I'll tell you.
I'll give you a commercial endorsement that you can pop into the breaks, right?
Yeah, that's great.
So tell us a few of the stories that that are in the book. I'm just absolutely I've already
Yeah.
just as we're just before we got on, I already ordered the book myself. So
Oh, thank
um,
you. Thank you so much.
yeah.
Yeah, it's so I tried to make these universal stories that
Mhm.
we all either know these people or we are these people.
Right.
And or we've at least heard something similar, you know. So as I said, I have a story to align with each of the tarot cards. And so the first story, the magician right side up presents well. The magician was born to be in front of an audience. You know, Ross, Gary, you're both magicians. I'm a magician as kind of an entertainer, you know, and so there's nothing wrong with the magician. The magician has all the tools to make magic, and usually has talents that not everybody has. But upside down, what we call a reversal in the tarot, the magician is our con artist or our trickster. And so my story is about this lovely elderly woman, widow, who was taken by a scam artist. And it's heartbreaking. And it's heartbreaking. I actually have a couple stories about how desperate people are for love. You know, I always say, of all the questions that I get asked, love is question number one. If everybody could say, okay, I only get one thing that I want to know about in the tarot, it would be love. And I think, you know, if we all want money and success and good health and all of that, but if you could only have one thing, it says a lot about humanity and oneness, and really, you know, God is love, right? And so it comes down to love, and there's a lot of loneliness. And so so that first story addresses it, as well as the story around the Lover's card, as you might guess. And just the lengths that people will go, and the indignities that they will suffer through, and all the warning signs and red flags that they don't want to see. You know, and then I have my struggles of jumping into their lives, caring, because I have made this connection to do the reading, and I want them to know that, you know, this isn't me just taking their money after I say something for an hour. I want to give them real tools to live successfully and to have some peace. And sometimes they don't like the message. Sometimes they're warnings, and it can be a very hard thing when people don't want to hear the warnings. And it can be terrible for me to witness, and you'll see my struggles with some of it. But so that's one of the stories. I have stories on addiction, and addiction, you know, does not have to look like drugs and alcohol. Sometimes it can look very positive, like work or exercise. Sometimes it can be very neutral looking, like Facebook or you know, or video games. But it's always our favorite way to go numb, so we don't feel our feelings. And the addiction story that I address is around the Wheel of Fortune card and a gambling addiction. And it was very painful to watch this woman be destroyed by it, just destroyed by it. And what a powerful force addiction is. And again, you'll see me jumping in, and how can I help, and can I bring her to some common sense, you know? And it's tough. There is a murder in my book, not a psychopathic kind of setup, more of a mercy killing. There is the story of two women who shared grief over dead children and me helping them find peace around that. There are stories of someone who I guess we could say sort of faked a death in order to not get caught for drunk driving, put a dead body behind the driver's the wheel. A lot of interesting stuff comes up. And, I've had people tell me that in
Sounds
their
like a
tarot
movie.
This is like Agatha Christie by tarot.
Oh,
Something else.
my sister-in-law read this and she's like, oh my God, this is a Netflix series.
Yeah, totally.
I'd be cool with that. Who would play me? That's the thing.
Well, I'm sure Meryl is free. We got the look, so it'll work perfect.
So thanks.
So I know that your book does talk about, how you use tarot to grow or give people strength and to identify their weaknesses, and so that they can move past some of these painful situations. How does that work?
Well, tarot is really a heads up,
Okay.
I tell my clients, as I said earlier, I can read your cards because we're connected just by being alive. I call that life force God. I don't tell people how to do God, what to call God, that's your business. But if you can go there, if you can say, okay, I'm alive, I'm hooked into this God system, then you have great power. And the choices you make and the direction you're putting your energy is going to reflect back on you. And you can identify through the tarot or other ways, but identify, oh, here's where I'm tripping up. Here's where I keep slipping into the negative. And then you can teach yourself to catch yourself in those moments and reframe and do it differently. So I think most of the time we know when we're on path for some trouble or a lot of times we're on path for trouble, but we don't necessarily want to do anything about it because we're kind of enjoying it. I've seen a lot of that in love. I've seen that in other addictions too. I'll put love in the category of addiction there because it often is. Yeah.
People they fall in love. Is that what you? Is that how you're?
Or even who are just addicted to the rush of it. It is a thrill. I always say if the whole world were in love at the same time, nothing would get done. And trains would be derailing and planes would be falling out of the sky and cars would be crashing because we'd all be texting little hearts to each other,
Right.
Well, if we do it right, the trains wouldn't be running because they're busy doing something else, and the planes wouldn't be flying because they're busy doing something else. I think we could use a day of all love.
Yeah. True love, real love, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, so where were we going with this? I kind of lost the gist of the question.
Get it, kind of breaking some of these habits or these addictions that people have.
So tarot is reflecting back what you already know on a higher subconscious level, and I'm just bringing it to your conscious awareness, and then I can give you tools. So some people can say, okay, I get it. I get that I'm doing this. I get that I have abandonment issues. I get that I have a struggle with substance abuse. I get that, whatever it is, and then I can help them go further. All right, what do we do to fix this? And more often than not, it's pretty clear.
And are you getting those answers through the tarot, or are you getting that through just your own intuition that comes out?
Both.
Okay.
When I read the cards, a lot of people ask me, could you do a reading without cards? And I think, sure, but I like the cards. First of all, they're kind of a crutch for me, honestly.
Yeah.
But what I love about them is they're beautiful. They're a visual that my client can see. And so my client is really reading along with me. You know, they look down, and as I'm talking through what these cards mean, they're seeing it and applying it to their life.
What it
So
means to them. Yeah.
I compare it to dream analysis in a lot of ways. So we have these dreams and these symbols, but
Right.
but you know, I will always doubt a dream analysis book that says when you dream of a house, it means this. You
Yeah,
know,
I hear
and
you. Totally. Yeah,
We know
it's more
exactly what you're saying.
personal. Yeah, it's more
exactly. Yeah.
personal than that.
Right.
And so we
Yeah.
all process it on a very personal level, and same with the cards. And so
Yeah.
I'm helping you to read it along with me. And you know your life. I don't know your life. I don't know what you're going through, Ross, right now, or Gary, what you have just,
All the
been
things I can tell
struggling
you.
with.
So,
But
so all right,
your
so
cards will show.
with all of this, I'm thinking about when you started doing this when you were 16 years old.
Mhm.
I mean, what were you telling people then? Well, Bobby really likes you, or is it, I mean, did you have just this you
What's the
were in,
maturity of what you were reading at the time? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So
exactly.
I wasn't good, like, I had no wisdom at
Sure,
Hmm.
16.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I was goofing around with my friends.
Mhm.
But I did have a knack for it.
Right.
And I did, I remember having my little white booklet because I didn't know it internally. I didn't yet
Sure.
know
Yeah.
about a Kabbalistic system. I
Yeah. Yeah.
didn't know about the
Right.
numerology and the mythology and the alchemy and all this stuff I learned
Sure.
many decades
Mhm.
later.
Hmm.
But so I had my little white booklet, and I remember one thing with my friend Kristen, who asked me why she couldn't lose weight. And we put down the Three of Cups in reverse. And it's, the three women with the goblets. And it's a card of partying and feasting and drinking. And in reverse, it's too much. And so I remember just like reading that, and we were laughing and, just cracking up, like, duh, right? Okay, I can't lose weight because I'm eating and drinking too much. But
Right.
it was the simple truths that were reflected.
Got it.
And so that's where we all start, is with the simple truths, the most
Right.
basic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
so back then,
you
you can actually
go-
consider this was somewhat of an innate ability that you basically were born with. It
Yeah,
wasn't,
well,
and then you refined it as, like, oh, I'm kind of pretty good
right.
at this, and then you got more involved and started refining your talent.
So in my book, in Tarot Life Lessons, chapter 0, this fool story, I talk about, I was always kind of a magical kid. I was
Okay.
always a little obsessed with spirituality and even just religion. I was
Mhm.
very active in my Episcopal church, which was like a charismatic Episcopal church. So they spoke in tongues, and
Oh,
I was my church retreat. They taught me automatic writing, which is kind
oh,
of
wow,
unusual.
cool. Wow, that's
Um,
pretty cool.
yeah, that getting into so much of what I
Hmm.
shared with Sylvia Plath, she had a lot of that background in her
Interesting.
Unitarian church. And so I was very actively spiritual, even as a very young kid.
Mhm.
Um, at 16, when I got that first deck of tarot cards, that was around the same time that I started to have my first premonitions. And I
Oh,
write about one where I had my new driver's license, and I was driving my wreck of a car, my 1974 Mercury Comet, with my little sister, to the mall. And I had a vision, what I would call a daydream, really, of a crow on the side of the road with a broken wing. And I
wow.
thought, why did I think of that? I just remember thinking that. And then about 5 minutes down the road, I saw exactly what I had just thought. And, what did it mean? Well, I talk in the book. I'm still not entirely sure, but the crow does have some unity with that Fool card, and I talk about that match as well. And the crow is, in the way of the Fool, is the bridge between the major and the minor arcana. The crow is kind of thought of a bridge between the light and the dark, and and interestingly, Sylvia Plath's husband identified with the crow entirely, Ted Hughes. I could go on. I won't get too deep into that. but so it kind of all just started happening to me around 16, which I have since learned is sort of the age of ripening, And
Okay.
most psychics kind of realized, okay, I have an awareness that my friends don't all seem to have, around that age.
Mhm. So did somebody introduce you to tarot cards themselves, or was it just,
It
you just,
was,
it was just
I was
something you
led
had,
to it.
sounds interesting.
Yeah, I just wandered into that shop and that girl
Yeah.
showed it to me,
Yeah.
and that was it.
Yeah.
It took me.
Wow.
Tarot owned me.
Because you're just,
Interestingly, just to get back to Plath, when I was 16 was also the age that I found Sylvia Plath's work, that I read The
Mhm.
Bell Jar and slipped into some of her poetry and went down that rabbit hole too. So it all happened at around the same time.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was definitely a message being sent to you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, she taught me she taught me what poetry was, but she certainly taught me to be a better tarot card reader as I got deeper into her study of mysticism and what the power of words can do, and how she could take one set of words and expand it in 6 different ways to have all these different meanings, and that words are a spell, and then to take it back to my Episcopalian background, and I'm learning this about Plath, and I'm hearing the Bible, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and I'm like, words are God, this is a God I can get with, and so just the power of words and oneness and that source. I mean, I think of it all the same, and it all found me at the same time.
Right. It's interesting. You should use that phrase about words being a spell. I was reading an article just last week, and somebody else had phrased it that way. Is
Yeah.
that words, they are a spell. That's why we call spelling words, because it's words are a spell.
Right.
And it
Right.
just really hit me. I'm just like, they're right. I've just never heard it put that way before, but I'm just like,
Yeah.
they're absolutely right. Gary and I, we deal with words on a daily basis. I mean, it's a huge
Mhm.
part of the work that we do. And but when I read that, I'm just like, this is so true. And it really just kind of opened a lot of doors for me to kind of look at things a little bit differently and look at talents like yourself, and like, okay, now I'm really, really getting it. I mean, it's fascinating. It does, and we just don't understand it. We had someone on the show, I think it was last year. I don't recall her name, and she had a similar message, but she just wasn't quite the communicator that you are.
Oh. Well, thank
And
you.
so it was just like, okay, let me have you back up just a little bit so that we can, we were constantly going back, and it's like, I'm not quite sure where people are understanding what you're saying. And but that then I went back and listened to that episode. I'm like, oh, okay, now I understand what she was saying, because I had better context with it. And so it's absolutely, the words that we use. We just did a class last night. We were talking about words and the whole structure of how we communicate with each other, and and how everyone's communication is so different. And then there's a point where there's interpretation, which is going to be my next question. Is there's a point of interpretation of what somebody is saying?
Yeah, yeah.
And we,
And the
very
real geniuses, the,
yes,
the
go ahead.
geniuses like Plath have layers of meaning. So, you know, this is what my work is on her has been about. You can read it. People only read Plath as her autobiography, which is such a waste and such a shame, because what I show is in her alignment, you know, in these poems of Ariel, she, you know, if you match each poem to a tarot card, she is describing the tarot card and the meaning if you read the poem one way. She's got a history element if you read the poem
Nice.
another way. She's got an element of mythology if you read it another way. She's got alchemy if you read it another way. You know,
You know,
it
which
goes on and
is
on.
it speaks to what Ross and I talk about as this holographic component of who we are and how we're all connected, right? Which comes to
Yeah.
a question that I have because I mean I dabbled a little bit in tarot when I was younger. I went more on the route of hypnosis and trance and stuff like that, and out of body and those kinds of experiences. But I did dabble in it, and when I did my uh, I'm trying to remember which training was. I did some training in either in neurolinguistic programming or hypnosis. Um, there was a deck that was introduced to us called the O deck. I don't know if you know about the O deck or not, but it's and we were and the teacher was telling us about the holographic component of this thing, where it doesn't matter who you are, you put this down and it'll have meaning for you, right? And I
Yeah.
think tarot in some way has that aspect as well.
Yeah,
So
it's Kabbalah, really. You
yeah.
know, if somebody, my first introduction to Kabbalah, which I didn't know I was being introduced to Kabbalah at the time, but in my 20s, I found a book by Hermann Hesse called
Hmm.
Magister Ludi, which has an alternate title of The Glass Bead Game.
Hmm.
And I remember being very fascinated by it. It was a little over my head, honestly, back in my 20s. But
Sure.
the idea was that there were like these mathematical equations that could equal the Mona Lisa, or could
Hmm.
equal, you know, a perfect piece by Bach or Beethoven, you know, and that these formulas went from this to this to this to this, and they were all like great things expressed, as you're saying, holographically, and through the same kind of formula. Well, that's Kabbalah. And so the
Hmm.
Kabbalah tree of life, all of the what they call today, I hate using the word actually, pseudosciences, but all of these things fit on the Kabbalah tree of life. And so and tarot embodies most of these things. So a tarot card holds numerology and astrology and astronomy, because back in the old days, astrology and astronomy were the same thing.
That's
It
true.
contains mythology, because of course you look up in our skies, and which you've got the
Hmm.
beautiful stars behind you in your background, and that we have named all of those stars for mythological characters, and there's all this back and forth feeding of information. Alchemy, same thing. Which alchemy, it blew my mind. I always heard of like the alchemist turned lead to gold, right? And I didn't really understand that this was okay. There's practical alchemy in the chemistry lab doing exactly
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
There
Right.
is the emotional alchemy of healing ourselves and rising from our base natures to our fullest potential. And then
Yeah.
there's the spiritual alchemy of becoming one with our God self. And
Totally.
and it's a three-way thing, you know, and so this was all, you know, decades of learning for me. But and I was just talking to someone else about Kabbalah. Does anyone ever learn all of Kabbalah? I don't think so. I mean, I don't think it's possible. But
No.
you know, not to have a normal life in the meantime anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
but there's so many layers to it, and everything is a reflection of everything else in this really incredibly powerful way. And that's God, you know, that's the face of God. And Kabbalists will teach that we're all avatars of God and faces and reflections of God. And it's just kind of owning it or not, and whether we want to be on the light side or the dark side or something in between.
So you speak of pseudoscience, which is always something that has fascinated me, because there's many people who say that pseudoscience many times actually becomes traditional science. It just
Mm,
needs more time to uh,
yeah.
define itself and create a foundation. So when you're doing the work that you do, you must obviously run into a lot of skeptics
Oh,
that
sure.
they dismiss the tarot cards and the psychic readings as they're just that's just coincidence. How do you respond to that?
Usually I give them a reading
Yeah,
because, as I say, you don't have to believe.
right. Mhm.
Belief is not a requirement to get a good
Mhm.
tarot card. I
Right.
have been called a mentalist before. I'm
Okay.
okay with that, So what is a mentalist? A mentalist is someone who's very in tune, very observant, very connected to pick up on things. I would just kind of credit that with spiritual ability myself, but people can call me what they want. I really don't care how they want to label me. What I care about is that you get something transformative from your experience with me. That's what I care
Mhm.
about. And
Right.
so usually, I have had some skeptics who've been awful. Um I've worked some parties. Parties are interesting environments because Gary, if you call me up and say I want a tarot card reading and it's a one-on-one thing and you invest money, chances are because you invest some money, you care about the quality of your reading. But
Totally.
with
Yeah.
but with a party, some host has done it. And so these people just kind of sit in front of the table. And I've
Yeah.
had some people be nasty. The
Yeah.
worst I ever had was one guy who said that they were just pieces of cardboard and he threw them at me, threw them in my face. And I was
Jeez.
outdoors and it was windy and I
Oh
had to go
gosh.
running around picking them all
Ah,
up. And
jeez.
it was just really obnoxious. Um,
Yeah.
So let
I'm
me
not
interrupt you.
sure.
Let me
Yeah.
interrupt you for one moment. So when he did that, though, was that was that prior to you doing a reading, or was it during a reading and you struck a nerve?
I never got to read for him.
You
Yeah,
never
like
got.
he
So he was
just
just all the way
sat
around.
down. He
Mhm.
sat down with the intent to give me hell. You know,
Okay. All
he
right.
he really didn't have any interest in a reading.
Okay.
Um, but that's the worst, and that has only happened once in my life. And I don't think I would attract that anymore. I kind
Hmm.
of just attract a higher vibration these days.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I have had people, getting back to the party thing, when people are drunk, I say there's a reason they call it spirits. And so if someone sits in front of me and they're very inebriated and they're hollering everything and they're forgetting what they just asked me, or they look at a card and they are interpreting it themselves and not listening to what I'm saying and they're freaking
Right.
out because they see the death card or something that's misunderstood classically. And I've had to like talk some people off a ledge who are just sobbing because they think that the cards are saying that their life is over tomorrow, and I'm like, no,
Hmm.
Right.
come on, but so that's not my favorite situation either.
Sure.
um
Sure.
most people tell me they're skeptics, and then they talk to me, or maybe they get a reading, and they're like, all right, well, I don't know what this is, but you're onto something. And they'll say, okay, maybe I won't call it God, but maybe I'll call it connection. And I'm okay
Mhm.
with that. You
Good.
call it what you want. You do spirit the way you want to do it.
Right.
That's just fine by me.
I love.
We're all on our individual paths, and I am not out to convert anyone. Some people are afraid that tarot is a kind of religion. Some people are afraid that if they do a reading with me, that I want to get them like on a program, and I'm always like, this is what you want. So you can do 5 minutes with me, or you can do an hour with me. You can do it every day, or you can do it once a year, or once and never again, and everything
Mhm.
in between. I want it to be good for you. I don't want it to be this, this Madame Cleo kind of situation where I'm, it's like, yes, I do charge per minute. I have that aspect, but that's just to be respectful of my time, because I'm only one person. And as I get busier, I cannot be available to all people all times. And I wish I could, but I have to still have a personal life of my own, and I have to have my own boundaries. But
So speaking of personal life, because I did I dug a little deeper maybe than you wanted us to, and that
oh, good.
I see that you have on some. Tell us about night times.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
because that
yeah.
sounds interesting to me.
Yeah, my other life. So back when I was 30 years old, I divorced
Mhm.
my first husband of 10 years.
Yeah.
I had 2 children. I had no money, and I had this wild hair to have a life again. I've always been a bit music obsessed. Anybody
Okay.
who follows me on Twitter knows that in addition to all the spirituality, let's talk rock, let's have a debate on Soundgarden, or
Oh, nice.
and and
I gotta
so
I gotta go get my wife because that's right up her alley.
right. So in this very bleak time, really in the hardest time of my life, I started a music magazine, and I did it essentially because I was in love with this rock star named Matthew Sweet. I don't know if you remember the 90s pop alternative scene, and
Yeah.
he had come out with this album called Girlfriend, and oh my God, totally spoke to me. And I was like, I have to meet Matthew Sweet. And so I thought, I had this history doing some PR for a literary center. And so I had worked with publicists working with famous writers. And I thought, well, it can't be so different. Famous musicians also have publicists. And so I thought, how can I do this? And I approached pretty much the hottest club we had in St. Louis at the time, Mississippi Nights, where they had all the shows that I wanted to see. And I asked Mississippi Nights if I could do a newsletter for them. And to my amazement, they said yes.
Yeah.
But I had to find my own money for it, which I didn't know how I was going to do it, but it was a God thing. And Street Side Records, which was a record chain back at the time, they gave me my first check to publish that first zine. I ended
Wow.
up with really a community of a family of interns. I had about 30 people working for me for absolute free, for the love of the words and the music. And it
Nice.
was such a joy. It was the hardest time in my life, and it was the best time in my life. And I wrote a memoir about it called Night Times that
Yeah.
has yet to be published. I had 3 different book contracts on it, and that fell through every time. And so I guess it just wasn't time yet.
Right timing.
But
Yeah.
I'm not giving up on my Night Times memoir because it's important to me. It's truly my story and all the evolution of me, and really music helped me rise out of the darkest place in my life.
Yeah.
Those things. Why don't you
Well, I
just
think
self
it's important for people to see that there's a different side to us. Like, because, I think that a lot of people,
Yeah.
even like with Ross and I, have this idea of, that we're always in this mode, and to know these other sides and these other flavors of us. I think it's
Yeah,
really great to share. So when I saw that, I'm like, huh, that's pretty interesting. So I thought I'd bring that up. And I
Wow.
see on your website you also have a radio show too. You started. Is that still going, or is that what's
Uh,
that?
I'm on a little bit of a hiatus right now just to get this book launched. It's
Oh,
called
okay.
Mystic Fix.
Hmm.
And it's been on weekly on News Talk STL, 1019 and 94.1 FM here in St. Louis.
Hmm.
Love the station, wonderful people, really believing in me. I will be not doing it weekly on the radio station, though. It's just too much, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm finishing up this next book that's going to be released in May of 2024, The Occult Sylvia Plath. and having just recorded the audiobook of tarot life lessons, and now doing my little blog podcast book tours and my book release parties, and I can't do it all. I'm just one person, plus my regular clients, of course, and plus the seasonal events and the holiday parties, and it's kind of crazy right now. So so I'll probably do like one show a month, something like that. I've really enjoyed Mystic Fix and met some very cool people, and so it's fun to help other authors. Usually I'm interviewing other authors, but I'm open to anybody, and if someone wants to reach out to me about being on Mystic Fix, they can do that. And,
yes, we will.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. Hey, we all clearly get along. This has been a very easy inflow interview.
Great.
So let me ask you, in contemporary society, in today's modern world, do you find that the ancient practices of tarot and mysticism, do you feel that is growing, or it's being subdued in modern times, in today's time, with technology and TV and all that kind of stuff?
Here's what I'll say about that. We're going two ways. I mean, the polarity in the world right now is incredible.
Yeah.
In so many different ways beyond politics.
Oh, I understand.
And I having a background in academia, because in another former life I was a college professor, and my academic friends who I love, many of them are diehard atheists and die on that hill. And I guess, and even Sylvia Plath herself called herself an atheist, by the way, but she was the most spiritual atheist you ever want to come across. So I don't think atheism in and of itself, like I said, you do God your way. So maybe you just call it connection or source or energy.
Exactly.
It does not have to be a man in the clouds with a list of commandments.
Exactly.
But what I'll say is that there is this coldness right now, this almost hatred for people of any kind of faith. And that really troubles me. And so I'm about love and unity and connection. And this is the most disconnected maybe we've ever been in history. Because
I think it's a pendulum swing, right? I think that the intensity on that side was there for so long, and then all the dirt start to show up, and people start to say, "Well, to get away from that, find what's my truth." And I think it's that what we're noticing, right?
But what back in 2020, which was maybe everyone's bleakest time, right? That was when I said, okay, more than ever, the world needs what I study, A Course in Miracles. And so I began a Course in Miracles study group at that time, which is going strong. And I love my Course in Miracles people. I also have been a
shout out to Marianne Williamson.
I've also been a long time student of Buddhism, which is not so different from A Course in Miracles, actually. And I have a regular Buddhist study group on Thursday mornings, which those things have really kept me grounded. What I think is when people do not have something to turn to, something to believe in, something to find a place of peace, they're going to go nuts. And I think we've never seen a higher level of mental illness. We've never seen higher levels of depression. For most of my angry, anti-faith friends, it sounds kind of cold, but how's that working out for you?
Right.
Because they're usually in pretty dark places. If you're going to be a nihilist, I don't envy you, because that's a hard road. And I don't want to do it that way. This keeps me sane. And some people might call me ignorant or stupid. who's living a higher quality of life, and I do know that I have been called to be here right now in this dark place as a light. And it's funny, I first signed on to Twitter maybe in late, I don't know, 2008, 2009. And then I went off it for many, many years. And it was 2020 that I went back on Twitter. And because I felt called to be a light in a very dark place. And I still get my combative people every now and then. And occasionally, I'm human, and occasionally I'll take the bait and start, like, all right, and I gotta like just get away. But but overall, I've really I've made some good friends, and I have changed some lives, and I have had some really just important relationships coming out of that, just returning to Twitter. So
Nice.
I don't know, I think that we're called to be lights in our different ways.
Absolutely.
That's great. That is good. So, we have found the same thing, like another similar story, because Gary and I have been partners for 13 years, going on 14, working on our project called the Infinity Process. And we had done about in 2020, we were being interviewed on somebody else's show, a friend of mine that we've been friends for well over 15 years. And and we were telling her about what we were working on, and she's like, you need to do this. You need to do this now, because as you said, the world needs this now. And we did, and we just boom, and and things just exploded for us. But and for the same reason as you, it's just like, we are the light. We want to be that light. We want to be that beacon, so that people know that there is a safe harbor somewhere. And then from there, we can take them and we can say, listen, it's not like you think it is. It says you're caught up in the storm, and we want to bring you to the eye of the storm. We want to bring you to the calmness. The storm's going to be out there, and you're trying to fight, something that, you don't need to fight. Just get into the eye of the storm and observe the storm and such. And what we find is that when you're in that eye of the storm, other people who are in the storm are kind of going, well, what's going on over there? How come he's so calm? How come he's so cool, so calm and collective and such? And then they just gravitate towards you. It's like, I want what you got. I'm tired of this chaos. And that's what the feeling that I get from you as well, is that you're in that eye of the storm, that people are going, she's the one that I want. She's the beacon. She's the light. I want to go to her because she obviously knows something that I don't.
Yeah, and there's a big responsibility, with that, because I am far from perfect and very, very human. But
and that's what makes it work.
And we talked about that being gloriously infallible, right? And that's a part of being in the eye of the storm, being okay with your infallibilities, and it's just who you are, right? And showing up as that. Yeah.
Okay, so we are pretty much near the end of our hour. So, this is your chance. I mean, give people your website. One more pitch for the book, and then we'll just kind of wrap things up.
Yeah, boy, that went fast, huh? So, so my book is Tarot Life Lessons. And it is available for pre-order now with all the major booksellers. It comes out released November 7th, 2023. And audiobook soon to follow. I don't have the exact release date on the audiobook. If somebody wants to look me up for a tarot card reading, they can go to juliagordonbramer.com, and I'll spell that GORDONBRAMER.com. If they want to,
we'll put the link in the comments too. So
perfect. If they want to find me on Mystic Fix, mysticfix.com, or they can write me at julia@mysticfix.com. And and thank you for having me. I have loved every minute of this.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome.
We're gonna get this into editing right away, and we're gonna work on getting it to go out the same week as your book is going out. So
Oh,
um,
fantastic.
get some momentum going for you as well. We really, really enjoy this, and we enjoy
Thank you,
your work.
guys.
And I've already typed in about 3 more books that I have to read now.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's stay in touch. And where are you guys located?
I'm in Seattle. Gary's in up near Vancouver, Canada, BC.
Okay.
And,
I
so
always
kind of
like to know in case I'm traveling or something,
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely.
grab a cup of coffee or something.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
Totally.
We'd love that,
And I'm in St. Louis. So if you're
Yep.
ever coming through St. Louis,
Is
look
there?
me up.
Nice.
It's been a while since I've been in St. Louis, but it's a very pretty city. It's very,
Eh,
very pretty.
not so much these days.
Yeah. It was a
This,
while ago. So I mean, I
this
guess I could say
changing
the same
world.
thing about Seattle. Seattle's
Yeah,
changed so
right.
much lately as well. So
Yeah. I
again,
I
I think
love
it's that polarity we were talking about.
Yeah, I love the Experience Museum, the Experience Music Museum. I'm a huge rabid Jimi Hendrix fan, so
There you
so
go.
that's like my mecca up there.
I mean, you definitely need to come and look me up when you're up in the area, and Gary will come down and we'll all get
Yeah.
together. Fantastic.
Awesome,
And
awesome.
and just for clarification for our listening audience as well, so you can do readings via the internet.
Absolutely.
You
I
don't have
read.
to
I
be
can
there.
even Right. It doesn't have to be in person. I can even read by email. So,
Mm,
so for some
that's cool.
people who like total anonymity, I have a lot of
Hmm.
regular email clients actually. I give readings all over the world.
Okay.
Sometimes I do it through WhatsApp if they're international,
Hmm.
but phone and video, Zoom, of course.
Right.
So all the different ways we can connect. Tarot works for all of it.
Mhm. All right.
Cool.
That's fantastic. So, Julie, we greatly appreciate you taking the time, and I'm definitely looking forward to your book arriving, and
Hmm.
then obviously very much looking forward to the audiobook. So,
Yeah.
and until next time, until you end up in Seattle or we end up in St. Louis, or the next book launch, we will be
Great.
here for you. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. It was
You're
fun.
welcome. Be well. Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.
Yeah. So, I'm going to take this time here. I'm going to ask you to just play along here with us just for a little bit. Okay. If possible, and if you're in a place where it's safe to do so, just close your eyes for a few moments and let us take you on an imagination where we transport you to a unique place. Let's say it's a sanctuary where minds converge in conscious collaboration. Imagine that. And we're all headed there together, even though it will be unique to each of us in this space. There's no room for the typical noise of selling, no elevator pitches, and certainly no awkward self-promotion that just turns people off. Okay? Instead, it's a space where authenticity reigns supreme, where pure relationship building and collaboration take center stage. So imagine joining in this space, feeling an immediate sense of warmth and camaraderie. You greet and you're greeted by purpose-driven entrepreneurs and thought leaders from diverse backgrounds, all gathered with a shared intention to connect, to learn, to grow together. And the air just swells with the vibrant energy of possibility and the excitement of collective wisdom.
Okay, so keeping your eyes closed, continue to imagine that. As you participate with the intention of service, you become part of engaging and deep conversations. Everyone is actively listening to one another with genuine interest. There are no ulterior motives or hidden agendas. Everyone is focused on understanding, empathizing, and learning from each other. It's a place where vulnerability is celebrated. For it's through vulnerability that true connection is forged. In this space, you are not just a name or a title. You are seen, You're heard and valued for your unique perspective and contribution that goes beyond your business label. You feel a sense of belonging and empowerment, knowing that your voice matters and that your ideas have the potential to create positive change for those in the meeting with you. By you participating in this virtual environment, we are co-creating a sanctuary of conscious collaboration where the power of collective minds can be unleashed. It's a departure from the traditional business landscape where competition often has been valued and often overshadows collaboration. But here, we prioritize collaboration over competition, recognizing that by working together, we can achieve far more by working than working in isolation.
Yeah, and so we are imagining this transformative journey together. And in doing that, we can embrace a place where purpose-driven entrepreneurs and thought leaders converge, where authenticity and relationships are the currency, and where collaboration is the catalyst for remarkable achievements. Just imagine that. Now, go ahead and open your eyes, come back, and let's begin to build this reality together, right here, right now. And before we go into that and go towards that, here's what others are saying about this type of collaborative environment and what their experiences are. Okay. All right, now that you've watched those, here are a few things you need to know to be ready for the virtual roundtable. First thing is that you need to be there right on time or early if possible, because we want to honor everyone's time and start into the experience right away. Because once we get going, there's such a flow of creative interactions and ideas that it's important that we actually head right into the breakout rooms about 5 minutes in, so we don't really waste a lot of time. So to prevent interruptions, we won't be letting anyone in late. And that's a strict rule, a strict boundary we're going to stick by.
Exactly. And second thing is that you need to be camera ready. This is not a sit behind a blank screen experience. There are no spectators. Have pen and paper ready. You have to have your camera on in order to really participate with your partners, in order to build those relationships and those collaborations. Think of this like the blending of a super powerful mastermind with the time and the efficiency of a speed dating service. So you can expect efficient use of your time and a variety of interactions with like-minded entrepreneurs in a no-pressure environment for a powerful bonding experience. So, for example, let's say you had individual meetings with, let's say, 20 people at 30 minutes each. Well, that would take you 10 hours. But instead, if you met those 20 people in 1 2-hour day, you're going to have a relationship and a bond with everyone in the virtual roundtable. So this is such a smart, efficient use of your time when you come to these events.
Absolutely. And the most important rule is that everything we do here is in a safe place.
Absolutely.
You can show up as your authentic self and know that you have a space where you can get real help. This also sets the tone so that you get amazing value from each event. You're going to leave with solid connections, absolutely. Now, let's face it, being an entrepreneur can sometimes be so isolating. Well, it's time for us to change that, right? And when you have a community like this, you're going to want to come back and interact with familiar and new members on a regular basis. So remember that imagining that we had you do a little earlier today in the video? Well, we are going to facilitate that kind of experience for those who show up. All right. Once again, thanks for being here and taking action. As we all know, that's the only way to get things done. Now, let's connect, get empowered, and create an impact. If you have any questions, you can DM either Ross or myself on Facebook, and we look forward to seeing you in our next virtual roundtable.
We'll see you there.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye.